Gayatri Mahamantra. Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Papa Swami Ramdas Ji Maharaj. Papa, someone so dear, so near, so absorbing, so understanding, so accommodating. Otherwise, this kind of an assignage is not easy to be given. So it becomes obvious for whomsoever this assignage has been given that each one who came into the contact of such a being felt a very close proximity, that the word Papaji became so common to all. Born as Vittal Rao in 1884 in Kerala, Father Balakrishna, an average family, a Sanskarit family, no doubt about that, but an average family. Like any ordinary child, the early age moved through the common privileges. But the child was born with a seed of a very different kind. As all these exalted ones always appear to be drawing a contour when it comes to be born with a seed, a very different seed. Likewise, he too had a very deep inclination towards devotion, bhakti, but it had not surfaced to that extent at an early age. The ordinary life moved further, was deprived of certain resources, was not able to earn adequately, so started propitiating the name of Lord Rama as a Rama Bhakta, understanding that my deprivation shall end if I propitiate the name of the God. His father suggested him that why don't you add the Om Akshara along with your Nam Japa, your incantation, you can add Om with that. So Om and Ram, he started observing his japa in that form. Soon the energy of that japa, that incantation of the mantra, became so intense. Although the benefits in the material terms did translate to his satisfaction, but above all, now there was a sort of a distancing from the materialistic world. He distanced himself. Unknowingly, an inner detachment started manifesting into him. He was observing that going on within him, not much shared outside. A day came when the accumulation of the divine reservoir of the divine effulgence rose to levels that one day he had to resolve finally, this world is not for me in this form. I must now relinquish and lead a different way of life. Having determined so, at the age around 37, 38 years, he moved out of his house without informing much to anyone. At the banks of the Kaveri, he relinquished his ordinary normal clothes and gave himself the saffron ones. Not only the color, not only the garb, but rather allowing it the saffron to permeate into his existence. It marinated into him. I can use one more word for that. The essence of sannyasa through that arch orb morphed into his entire existence. And from there from, he became a sannyasi. From Vittal Rao to sannyasi, Swami Ram Das Ji. started moving with the monks throughout temples, pilgrimage, wherever he got the opportunity. A group was moving towards Thiruvannamalai to have darshan of Brahmarishi Maharshi Raman. He joined them. Now, standing before Brahmarishi Maharshi Raman, is looking into his eyes. Ramdas ji, Swami Ramdas is looking into the eyes of Brahmarishi Raman and silently expressing him his deepest yearning that I should be able to cherish the purpose of this life, should be able to emancipate, and every minute from here onward should be meaningful in the terms to emancipate. The Brahmrishi was a Trikaldarshi. He gathered it at that silent dimension, and then, without speaking anything, in the same subtle frequency, he gave his nod, as if giving him an acceptance, endorsement, stamped his will that your will to emancipate, to cherish the basic prime purpose of your manifestation shall be realized. That endorsement to him was such that, as he expressed, that my entire existence almost transmutated. I lost the presence of my being there. It was so intense that after that, for 3 months, he confined himself into a cave at Arunanchala and was deeply engaged into his incantation Nam Japa, propitiating the name of the God. Absolutely oblivion to the world outside. That's not easy. A preparation of lot many lives is required for that. The irresistible mind, the scintillating mind, cannot cease to interfere into any and every activity within or outside, even for about 5 minutes. It's not easy to hold it for 5 minutes. Forget about 300 seconds. Even for 60 seconds, it is not easy. Except those moments after Brahm Muhurt Dhyan when you are in a different dimension. Otherwise, in a normal parlance, it's not easy for a human to make himself sit for a duration more than 60 minutes in one asana, and then also confine within himself with a stationary mind for more than few minutes. And it was so with him on the sake of the preparation which he had probably from lives together. When he came out to this world, he was a different person then. But that did not end there. He then moved towards another place, a Panch Pandav cave at Kadir. There again, he confined himself into a cave for a long duration, and again into deep state of meditation, where the actual opening, unleashing, unraveling happened. As he mentioned later, that in the middle of the eyebrows, initially it was a small light, a small ball of light, which then became expansive to such an extent that that ball of light absorbed his entire existence to the limits that he could feel it all over, oozing out of each and every pore of his existence. Everything got assimilated under dissolution to extent nothing and nothing except light was the remnant. There was nothing residual. There was nothing that was a remnant except light. He felt a higher state of awareness where any kind of a concern or awareness towards the material manifestation was totally non-existent. Ramdas was now one in oneness with that absolute. Therefrom, he moved out, and no flower can, however, dare confine its own aroma within itself. Its beautiful smell cannot be confined. And the same happened with him. He was a height of submission, the humility to great extents. But yet, despite all that, he could not confine the awakening which he had experienced and that awakening which had transmutated his existence. Soon, people around him, whosoever shall come in contact with him, started becoming aware about this special emanation which oozed out of him. People starting coming close to him to seek counsel. He too, wherever shall go, instruct people the same to propitiate the name of the God, however your problems may be. When the oneness with God happens in the true sense, then your problem becomes His. He looks after you, and then you become a different being in the same world, living entirely in a different dimension. He went on conveying the same to people at large. His exalted disciples, few of them, were the ones which he probably was privileged and fortunate to have. To emancipate in your individual capacity can depend upon your own preparation, your own sadhana. But being blessed with students, exalted students, is something which is a blissful boon that is realized by any exalted master. And the same happened with him also. He had great disciples like Mata Krishna Bai, who at a very young age became a widow and came to him as a daughter. And then thereafter, the entire life of Mataji was totally dedicated and submitted to Papaji, her father. Not the father in the sense of that she was his daughter otherwise, but the father of her soul, you can call it. At the soul end, Swami Satchidanand, Swami Muktanand, and Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, the one exalted being upon whom I am going to certainly create one of the Sand Satsang programs upon. He, his final culmination of this Jivan Leela was in 1963. But all through, wherever he wandered, it was a very meaningful wandering. Always submitted, always dedicated, address himself as the third person, a person who probably has submerged into the Brahma to such an extent that he was not existing anymore. He was not to remain anymore. It was total dissolution. That is the reason that a large number of followers became attracted to him. They got a lot of guidance from his presence, and they cherished their sadhana in their life, became associated with Nam Japa, and were able to experience inner growth in their own personal lives. The mention of such an exalted being is complete when you find any of his image on the net. Watch his image, which tells you more than 1,000 stories in itself. The kind of auric emanation from his image of submission, devotion is such that you don't need anything else to be known about him. That's enough to develop a bonding with him. That's how I experienced him while making some preparation upon this particular program. Thoroughly attracted. Having said so, I pay my highest obeisance and my regards from the core of my heart to Papa Swami Ramdas Ji Maharaj. ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है, ओम ही सत्य है.